This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right, it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. So glad to have you with us. And make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick. Okay, whether you're watching this on Spotify or listening or on iTunes or YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe. And also make sure you go to riseuptomilehigh.com to reserve your seats. You most certainly want to be a Mile High 13. Hard to believe it's 13. You don't let the 13 scare you. I know they don't have the 13th floor on like elevators and stuff like that at hotels, but look, be at Mile High 13. We didn't call it 14. Don't skip to 14. Just bees there. Get all the details at riseuptomilehigh.com. And the theme is going to be Vegas theme for Ocean's 13. Make sure you bring your best Vegas glitz and we're going to have fun. Today, I'm super thrilled to have on the podcast my longtime friend, friend personally and friend, family friend, Jacobe Holman. I call him Jacobe. He's the owner and founder of Wild Roots Chiropractic in Arvada. He specializes in neurologically focused pediatric and prenatal care. 13 years of experience. I'm so glad to have him back on higher ground. He left Colorado for sea level for a little bit, and now he's back. And I'm so thrilled to have him here. Certified instructor with Peak Potential Institute, teaches chiropractic around the world about craniopathy and pediatric spinal and tonal adjusting. And so super thrilled to have you connect with him. He's going to be on stage at Mile High after being an attendee for so many years. So thank you for joining us today, Jacobe Holman.
My absolute pleasure, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you back in the Mile High State. I really love how much there's been, Joel Kinch always says, just like the Rockies say, homegrown heroes, right? They say that they grow the homegrown talent. I'd love seeing more and more Colorado being a hub for chiropractic. It wasn't used to be that, so it's just so thrilling to see it. And so grateful to have you hopping up on Mile High stage. Let's have people get to know you better first. Can you say a little bit about how you found your way into the chiropractic world?
Oh man, that's quite the story, Danny. And I'm going to try to give some details, not too many, because I'm going to talk about my story on stage at Mile High. So I don't want to give away too much in this discussion, but wrapped into a little nutshell, it was the result of an injury that I had. I played semi-pro football at some point in time in my life. I was doing other things as well. And I became incredibly injured during a practice. And, I went the classic medical route, drugs, painkillers, anti-inflammatories, things of that nature. And for 2 weeks, there was zero change. And I was a young 20-something young man, and I found solace in working out and playing football, right, smashing into things, and I could not do that. And so lady that I worked with just said, kind of tired of hearing you huff and puff every time you stand up. Why don't you go see the chiropractor across the street? And I did. And Danny, like I said, without giving away too many details, it was more than an adjustment, right? It was an awakening. It something inside of me was ignited in that experience. And so that's really where I started to dream. My life sort of took on a new direction at that point, and it was a slow process to get there, but that initial encounter with chiropractic was what inspired me to move that direction. So
excellent. And then you found your way to where? Where'd you go to school? Where'd you
graduate? I went to school at Logan. Yeah, that was
okay.
At the behoof of that doctor. He kind of broke up how the schools worked, and there was the philosophical Palmer dudes, and that was like the fountainhead, right? I knew that much about it. And then there was Parker, and then he said, all the big brains, all the smart guys go to Logan. So I was like, oh, that's where I want to go to school. So,
okay, now let's go in a little bit. What with getting started in practice, because there's students, there's new grads, people, the whole gamut. Okay, With getting started in practice, was it just effortless and people flocked in? Was there effort involved? Was there pain? Was there just immediate joy? What was the experience of getting, your feet on the ground with practicing in Colorado?
Well, I have sort of two separate experiences with that. My initial experience right out of school and after graduation was, I won't say that it was unpleasant, but it was with a lack of specific direction. I was with a practice management company. We had just signed up with one right when I graduated, and we were led down a path of decision making and business decision making and things of that nature that I don't think were great. Nonetheless, we did a thing. We bought a practice, and that was tough. There was, we didn't really know what we were looking for when we were buying a practice, right? So due diligence in that process was less than full, we'll say. And
Okay.
there was a ton of attrition. When that practice exchange occurred for a number of reasons.
Okay.
And so it was tough at the beginning. It was not busy, but we had a big office. And, I think that one of my superpowers is that I can relate to people. Okay.
Okay.
So the way that I describe and teach it now is that the power of chiropractic is that you don't even have to be that great at it. You know what I mean? And you're going to help a bunch of people with it. You know what I mean? As long as you're not too weird and you can relate to people and they enjoy being around you and you give a half decent adjustment, they're going to come back and they're going to pay you. And so we slowly were able to build our office back up to a steady place, and we were able to feel success at some point in time. But it was a long journey of discovery. Quite honestly, Danny, this is again part of the role that you and Dr. Rochelle play in this, is that after I had experiences with you, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in the future part of this, but I started to question, like, my goodness, these people are barely touching people and they're changing their lives, right? There are crutches, being left at the front door and pill bottles being left in the office because people don't need them anymore. And I can barely get people out of mild discomfort in, you know what I mean, 6 weeks. So it's like, what is happening here? What is the difference? And so that journey of self-discovery through our practice and our interactions with you guys and being at Mile High is sort of what led us to where we're at now. So
Excellent. Excellent. And that's I'm really excited to have you at Mile. I'm excited to have everybody at Mile High, and that was really a purpose-filled, thing that I didn't know I'd end up doing, but something just made it. Nate told me to do this, and I got to a point, that I wanted Colorado to be a hub of chiropractic enthusiasm, and how can we make that happen? So, to see the impact it's had to different people, well, globally, but also just to our backyard. Like you and I can talk about the philosophy nights and different chiropractors that have shifted. It's really very gratifying, to feel that that's happening. Now with that, a little bit more of a specific question. Well, actually, I'll say this. I say that same thing to people. Like when I teach network, for example, I say, look, it's going to work before you know what you're doing. Like there's going to be changes that happen. You're like, you won't even really understand what you're doing yet, and you're going to see changes. So that happens so often. It's one of the great gifts of chiropractic that innate can make up for a lot of things that aren't done exactly right. That we want everybody to be specific in whatever approach they do, whether it be toggle or diversified or Gonstead or SOT or whatever it might be as specific as possible. It's glad that you'll see changes before you even know what you're doing, which just speaks to the impact of chiropractic. Now, can you share a little bit about where you are on your journey now? Because now you're back in Colorado, and and we'll fill out some of the things in the middle. But now you're back in Colorado. You're starting a new practice. Tell us what's going on in your life these days.
So we just bought a practice less than a week ago, and so we're trying to get settled into that office now, and we are trying to build an office that focuses on supporting the people that we were when we had our first child. Okay, so young families, people who are navigating those waters, and we reflect on our experience of having our first child. And how unempowered, how unsupported and uneducated we were about the way that those things went and the choices and the options that you have. And, you can't control all circumstances all the time, but as we have learned in retrospective, that is that there are things that are under control. There are things that you can do. There are ways to optimize your nervous system so that the birth experience is different. And so that's the kind of office that we're trying to build right now. It's not so much that we're pediatric focused. I do have an expertise in advanced training in pediatric techniques. However, at the root of that, this is the philosophical construct of things, right? At the root of that, it's nervous system wellness, right? Nervous system function, and grown-ups have nervous systems too, right? So we're really into the family dynamic. So we love young families, we love kids, neurodiversities, things of that nature. That's kind of the office that we're building, just to kind of support those people and my goodness, educate people, not just patients, but chiropractors also. I found a passion for teaching chiropractic as well, because people just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know what we know. You know what I mean? And if they did,
Right.
they would make different decisions.
Right.
This famous
Right.
saying. So
Right. So then, there's a gap that's in between those things. And not that you didn't have maybe a passion for philosophy or, towards chiropractic when you got to school, and when you got out of school, but when did you feel maybe between graduating at Logan to getting going that you feel like you really got a bigger vision of chiropractic and philosophy and its impact?
Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't at school, and I've reflected on this a lot, because at some point you become bitter. It's like, my goodness, why didn't they tell me these things, right? But then I think that they did, and they did their best to reach people on a certain level, and I don't know that I would have listened to them even if they had been more direct about it, because I just didn't understand. And I had profound chiropractic experiences, my own pain-based experience. And then my son had a profound experience with an SOT doctor, craniopathy, right at birth. And so those were amazing. But my big moment, Danny, this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, it was a series of moments that I'll wrap into one moment, right? First, there was the entrainment that my son had from Dr. David Fletcher backstage at an event, chiropractic event in San Diego, and that it put my son to sleep for about 6 hours, which he was not sleeping. His nervous system was so wound up, he could not rest. So that was profound. And then he says, my goodness, you're in Colorado, and Boulder's in your backyard. You should be seeing the Knowles family, right? So then we come to see you, right? And we had profound changes. And then the big sparkler, right? The big firework was when Dr. Donnie invited us to come down to one of his events to see Caleb. And and he even warned me before he adjusted him. He was like, this is going to be different. It's going to, it's just going to be different. And then he proceeded to adjust my son in a certain way, a very indirect way that had a very profound influence on his nervous system. And as I described it to people, my son was only 5, I think, at that time. So very, very little boy. So there's no ego involved, right? He was face down. He did not see anything that was happening to him. And Dr. Donnie played him like a fiddle. Everything he did, I mean, it was breathtaking. And had I not been there in person to witness it with my eyes, I don't know that I would have totally believed somebody's story about it, right? But nonetheless, I was standing right there in proximity to it. And that was the moment that I think that my entire paradigm started to shift, where the fabric of reality sort of unraveled for me a little bit. And I decided that the world was bigger and more complex than I was led to believe. And then I sort of felt this obligation where, if this man can do this for my child with that level of engagement, right? I have no business manipulating spines in the beginning anyways. If there's another way, if there's a way to engage the nervous system in a less vigorous way, but a more profound way like this, then I should be learning that. So.
Well, there you go. And here's the thing. I'm going to bring down what you said.
Yeah.
So a lot of people learn just like get a spark of something more chiropractic, maybe for an instructor or something like that. They may get it from their own health change, right? They may get it from reading a green book or attending a lecture or something, then other things. But this is really interesting because it's what you just described to me is an experience,
Mhm.
an experience, and it's not a technique focus, but a chiropractic experience, and seeing it in your children and for you. And there's a profoundness to that.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's, there's something about chiropractic that, that enough not enough chiropractors have a chiropractic experience, and that's why they may go into all kinds of various routes, because they get a degree and don't learn chiropractic in school, unfortunately. In too many schools they don't learn chiropractic, and I don't think anybody is surprised by that
Right.
at all. I think it's kind of, we all are well aware of that at this point.
Mhm.
Then you hope that somewhere along the way they have a chiropractic experience, either through a patient or themselves, that's more than a didactic thing or reading something or an academic, but something that they say, wow, there's more to this.
Right.
So now that then I know you've worked with, when you went to Chicago, you worked in another practice. Can you share anything about that?
I call that my paid mission trip.
Okay.
I had always felt a calling to do something on a grand scale. And, we were building that, and that scale I've learned is very subjective, right? And so we were doing grand things in our office and we had success. But the office that we went to, has this persona, this image of being sort of the echelon, the place to be for pediatric care and neurodiverse presentations and things of that nature. So we were asked to join that team, and I took that opportunity. I just needed to spread my wings, and the weight of business ownership and also trying to find myself as a clinician was overwhelming. And then COVID happened, and we got pregnant that year too, right? So all of a sudden the world was just sort of not making a lot of sense. It was very different. And so we took that opportunity to sort of disassociate from our current reality and move to Chicago, to Northern Illinois, and create a
Right.
new experience. And it was nothing short of amazing. And part of that, even though I'd had profound experiences already, right? I had I had not delivered a volume of them myself with my hands. Okay. And I was
Right.
helping people. And I look back again in reflection. Retrospect is amazing, right? And I look back and my goodness, I was changing lives, and the reaction that people have when you close an office, Danny, is telling about how you've touched people and how you've communicated, or how you've um, 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 woven yourself into people's lives. We have a very unique influence on people, and I don't know. I've never had a love for a medical doctor or a massage therapist. You know what I mean? Like other practitioners in my life, but Danny, I can open a drawer right here on my left side in this desk that's filled with cards and letters about how, you've impacted people's lives for the better. And so anyways, it was a very busy office, seeing 1,000+ people a week. And so I joined this team where everything moved very fast, and it's all neurologically focused, and it gave me an opportunity to practice my craft. I got to work on my art and the delivery of chiropractic at a very high level. And so it was an amazing experience, because it's where I was able to, I had the philosophic construct, and but I just didn't have the repetitions. Okay. And so I got a lot of reps out at that office, and I feel like it was my moment to sort of grow. It helped mature my art and my skill in delivering the adjustments, and also my understanding of it, dealing with neurodiverse populations. You know, Living out there and dealing with and seeing those types of patients, you quickly realize that as a chiropractor, you're not a fixer, right? I am not
Right.
there to fix anything per se.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I went to 3 baby funerals when I lived out there, and these were children with neurocomplex presentations and things of that nature. And so that was a very defining point for me, because you feel like you have so much control. You're adjusting people, and things are changing, and things are happening, and you sort of get this feeling where, like, you're the one that's facilitating these changes, right? And then you meet somebody who's got a neurodiverse or neurodegenerative disorder of some sort, right? And you quickly realize that you're not there to fix anything. You're there to improve the quality of life that they have, right? To optimize the expression that they have within them, right? With the
Right.
limitations of matter that they have. And that to those families, to those parents, grandparents, even as I learned, it's the world to them. If it's one night's good sleep, it's a week of breathing a little bit better without having to use the shake vest and things like that. So I found a love for that. But those patients, those people were some of my greatest teachers,
Great.
because using neurotonal work, right? You just get to unlock potential, and potential is unlimited for each individual. You know what I mean? So it was just an awesome opportunity and learning experience. So
So I gotta ask something because we touched on your growth, right? And you getting into practice. We touched on what's going on for you now. We talked about philosophical growth, and we touched on art changes and like, hey, they're discovering there's something more. There's something that could be, I don't want to say more. Something to a gentle force application approach, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
right? I'd like to talk about your experience going to Mile High, but first business. So what I'd like to ask you is you probably learned some things in business along the way from opening, right? And having some struggles. Then seeing a larger practice, you probably learned some business things there that were new, and you're bringing to your new practice. You're probably bringing some of what you learned. What are some things about the business of chiropractic that you learned that you'd like the people that are watching and listening to know?
Gosh, well, I'll tell you, I am blessed to have an amazing partner in the business, right? A lot of the business analytic stuff, my wife takes care of. Miss Laura
Uh-huh.
is absolute value in that. That said, the things that I've learned, a lot of them tie into clinical things as well. So from a business perspective, I see these questions a lot. So right off the bat is charging people, right? Um, People are always asking like, well, what do you charge? What do you charge? What do you charge? And as I've learned, it's not a bad question per se, but it's the wrong question, right?
Yep.
Because there is an analytics to it, right? You have a fixed overhead, and you have bills that you pay. And so what you need to know first is how much does it cost you to keep your doors open? Okay.
Okay.
And then once you know how much it costs you to keep your doors open, then you got to decide how much money do you want to make, right? What kind of life do you want? Okay. And then you sort of find the happy medium of in between, where this is what it takes to keep the lights on so people have a place to come and get adjusted, right? And then this is what I'm going to charge because this is the lifestyle that I feel like I deserve, that I want, whatever. So I think that was really impactful for me to understand that. Because it sort of helped me build my own value. You know what I mean? Because what
Yeah.
is my time worth? What is this adjustment worth to you? And that plays an important role in it too. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say something to that. What you just said is, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And there's something else that happens is that that I'll add before I ask you the next question, which is so often people don't take for account that this person that is spending time that they won't get back,
Mhm.
energy that they, in investing and trusting you, and then, the energy of money, all, with, the energy of like even driving there versus doing something else, that they take it for granted versus realizing how much that is that they're putting on the line,
Mhm.
and that, to treat the person in a certain way, to appreciate that of them, and to give them the best care clinically that they can, to give more, which I know you do in your practice, and have like that, hey, this person, this soul here that's here to see me, that I've got to show up as the best version of myself. I gotta tell you, is people don't put that. I see all the time they didn't put that into the equation
Mhm.
for their business.
And a lot of that, it's walking the walk, right? Walking the walk,
Right.
doing what you're saying. And Danny, that's, I didn't feel like I was doing that for a very long time, especially,
Ah.
like I said, after meeting you guys and seeing the way that you guys were helping people. um, I started to have this introspective experience where I realized that I did not believe that I was delivering what I was promising people. And so when
Mhm.
you're sitting across from somebody who's giving you their child, their hopes and their dreams and their money, their time, their energy, right? Um,
Mhm.
there's a connection that you have when you go eye to eye with them. And I'll tell you, I'm not a
Yes.
good salesman, but I am a good talesman. I can tell you the story now, you know what I mean? And I understand how to speak to chiropractic now on a level of salutogenic terms, right? But then I can
Love it.
also talk clinically with you if that's what you need, because we have to bridge that gap. And that's what brings me certainty. And when I
Mhm.
deliver that certainty, I find that I have better conversions, right? People feel that confidence in you. And so that's been an important thing for me from a business perspective as well,
Right.
is really, really, truly understanding what it is that we're doing with the adjustments and how you
Right.
can help people with it. Because then you can set reasonable expectations, you know?
Right, right, absolutely, and people underplay all that.
Mhm.
They undervalue, and then in terms of like the question of what do you charge, they undervalue what it is, and they undervalue what they're giving, and then that obviously plays into it. And then they underdeliver in terms of the experience of the office or
Right.
what they're making. They underdeliver. They under recommend, you
Hmm.
know. And then when they under recommend, people don't get the changes that they could have,
Right.
and then they don't give their biggest gift. So since they don't give their biggest gift or experience what it's like for have like the cards that you say you're having, like, they don't have that experience, so then they undercharge, and it all becomes this cycle.
Mhm.
And it's sad to watch. So
Absolutely.
let me ask you this, since probably winding down here, probably this might be the last set of questions. Mile High, what did you gain from being at Mile High? How many have you gone once? You've gone 10 times? I don't remember how many times
I
you've gone.
think in 10 years that I've been going, I've gone to seven of them. So the only ones I didn't go to were the ones that I wasn't in state for. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and so what I got out of it, Danny, was, well, first I started going before I even knew, before we took Caleb to you guys, right? And so I started going because I just needed to meet other chiropractors. There was just no other place, and I felt like I was kind of on an island in at my office. So I got that. I got camaraderie. Right? There was a place for me to go. I didn't really have any understanding of vitalism or philosophically constructed chiropractic at that point, but as I got in, I met everybody. I met you guys. You're really great people. So I just found a place where I was accepted, and then where I was a place where I was continually educated and poured into about the philosophy of chiropractic, about the foundation and the construct that we're built on. Um, so it was a place to nurture and support the growth that I had talked about, for the entire first part of this podcast. So
I gotta say, like, it touches me to hear that. And, I didn't know what road I was going down. I just woke up one day and said, hey, let's do this. I think it will really help chiropractic. If I had known all that would be involved, I probably wouldn't have done it. Just like if you had known like what it was to open an office, people
no,
say that, right? If I
no.
knew the work involved to become a chiropractor, but like I didn't know that. And I also did not realize, I didn't have the foresight. I just figured people needed to hear incredible content from the top speakers and learn. Like it was like an information level thing for me.
Mhm.
I did not realize how much people because I ask each year, they love the people, the community, where you said the camaraderie. They didn't have it, and they wanted to connect to other chiropractors. I did not realize how much that was a driving force and what people needed so much. They needed to get out of the four walls of their office and be around and associate with other chiropractors, like how important that was.
And I think seeing the size of the event, the number of people that are there who all think and deliver chiropractic on a similar level to you, I think is important to see as well.
Yeah,
Because yeah.
absolutely. And then like you talk about things like practice is not all roses, right? It's not right. So you get to talk to other people about the things that you're experiencing,
Mhm.
and that like chiropractors really need that, and their teams need. That's why I say bring your team.
Mhm.
Like that how important that is.
Mhm.
So I'm really grateful you're going to be on stage this year. I know people want to be in their seats when you're there Thursday night. And also, I'll put you on the spot. I want to make sure we end up having you speak at a philosophy night next year. When we have philosophy nights, we'll hook that up.
Perfect.
And I'm just really glad to have you and your family. I look forward to seeing you guys. I saw you a year or two ago or something, one of our philosophy nights. I look
Mhm.
forward to seeing you and your family, because I miss you guys. And, I don't know about saying go Broncos, but,
Hey, I'll do it. How about that? Go Broncos.
And so we look forward to seeing you at Mile High. And everybody, keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic. And make sure, look, it's counting down. You want to be there. Rise up to milehigh.com. Stop procrastinating. You'll be glad you were there. Okay. And thank you, everything. Thank you for being part of it this year, Dr. Jacob.
Amen. Have a good one.